The vast emptiness of space stretched before the reconnaissance vessel, its sleek metallic hull cutting through the dark expanse of the Crimson Nebula. Senior Navigator Park Hyun sat quietly at the control panel, his eyes scanning the holographic displays that flickered with countless data points. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary on this routine patrol. Suddenly, a tiny anomaly caught his attention. A microsecond-long energy signature rippled across his scanning grid, so brief that most would have missed it entirely. Hyun's fingers danced across the control interface, triangulating the source of the mysterious signal. The ship's advanced sensors began to pulse with increasing intensity. What had been a mere whisper of energy was now becoming something more substantial. Something was hiding, and it was incredibly good at staying hidden. Nearby, the ship's communication officer, Lieutenant Kim Jae, leaned forward. "Sir, I'm detecting quantum interference patterns that shouldn't exist in this sector," he reported, his voice steady but with an underlying current of excitement. Hyun knew something significant was about to happen. He adjusted the ship's scanning protocols, pushing the technological limits of their detection systems. For a moment, nothing changed. Then, like a ghost emerging from deep mist, a massive silhouette began to take shape on their screens. It was a spaceship. No, more accurately, it was a Dreadnought, a massive weapon of war that seemed to have been carefully concealed for an unknown period. Its design was unlike anything in their known databases. Smooth, angular surfaces suggested advanced engineering that defied current technological understanding. The vessel appeared completely dormant, yet it radiated an almost living presence. Its hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if the very molecules were in a constant state of subtle movement. No external damage was visible, no signs of battle or destruction. It was simply waiting. "Are you seeing this?" Hyun whispered, more to himself than to his crew. The Dreadnought was easily 10 times the size of their own reconnaissance vessel, yet it had remained completely undetected until this precise moment. Lieutenant Jae's hands flew across his control panel, running multiple verification scans. "Configuration doesn't match any known human military registry," he reported. "No identifying markers, no standard communication beacon. It's like it was designed to be invisible." Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. The vessel represented more than just a technological marvel. It was a statement. Whoever had created this ship wanted it to remain hidden, waiting silently in the darkness of space for a purpose known only to its creators. The reconnaissance team maintained a careful distance, their sensors probing the mysterious Dreadnought from multiple angles. Every scan revealed new layers of complexity. The hull seemed to absorb scanning waves rather than reflect them, a technology so advanced it bordered on the impossible. "Life signs?" Hyun asked, his voice calm but tense. Jae shook his head. "Nothing detectable, but that doesn't mean anything with this ship. Its shielding could be masking any internal activities." As they watched, subtle energy fluctuations began to pulse through the dormant vessel. It was almost like a heartbeat, slow, steady, waiting. The Dreadnought wasn't just a ship. It felt like a sleeping predator, potentially holding secrets that could change the balance of power in their known universe. Hyun knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't just a discovery. This was a moment that would be recorded in exploration logs, studied by scientists and analyzed by military strategists for generations to come. The Dreadnought continued to float silently, a testament to technological brilliance and strategic concealment. Its very existence raised more questions than answers. Who built it? Why was it here? And most importantly, what was it waiting for? As the reconnaissance team continued their careful observation, one thing became crystal clear. They had stumbled upon a mystery that would challenge everything they thought they knew about technological capabilities and strategic warfare. The alien research team prepared with meticulous care. Lieutenant Kim Jae selected a small boarding group of 4 specialists, each chosen for their unique skills and calm under pressure. Their protective suits gleamed with advanced technological interfaces designed to withstand extreme environmental conditions. As their small shuttle approached the massive Dreadnought, the vessel's surface seemed to ripple and shift. It was almost like the ship was breathing, its molecular structure changing subtly with each passing moment. The external hull appeared smooth yet complex, with geometric patterns that seemed to move when not directly observed. "Approach vector, calculated," whispered Park Min, the team's navigation expert. Her hands moved carefully across the control panel, guiding their shuttle with precision that came from years of training. The massive Dreadnought loomed before them, dwarfing their small craft like a mountain beside an insect. Unexpectedly, a thin beam of light emerged from the vessel's hull. It wasn't a weapon, but something more complex. A scanning mechanism that swept across their shuttle with incredible speed. The team held their breath, waiting for any sign of hostile response. "Incredible," muttered Dr. Lee Hyun, the team's lead researcher. "The scanning technology is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's not just detecting us, it's analyzing every molecular component of our craft." The light beam disappeared, as quickly as it had appeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, a small section of the hull began to dissolve, creating an opening that seemed to form organically rather than through mechanical means. "It's inviting us in," Park Min said, her voice a mixture of excitement and fear. The boarding team exchanged glances. They all understood the risks. This could be a trap, or it could be the most significant discovery in their civilization's exploration history. Each team member had trained for decades for a moment like this. As they entered the vessel, the first thing that struck them was the silence. Not an empty silence, but a pregnant silence. As if the ship itself was waiting, observing, thinking. The interior walls seemed to pulse with a soft, barely perceptible light that changed colors subtly with their movement. "Environmental readings are stable," reported Kim Jae, checking his suit's sensors. "Oxygen levels normal, temperature controlled, no radiation detected." The corridors were unlike any spacecraft design they had ever seen. There were no sharp corners, no typical mechanical interfaces. Everything seemed organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than constructed. Holographic displays flickered into existence as they moved, showing complex data streams that disappeared almost as quickly as they appeared. Dr. Lee touched one of the walls experimentally. "The material? It's responding to our touch," he said, surprised. The wall seemed to soften momentarily where his gloved hand made contact, then returned to its original state. Suddenly, a series of lights began to illuminate a specific path. It was subtle but unmistakable. The ship was guiding them. The team looked at each other, understanding that this was no accident. Something, or someone, wanted them to follow this precise route. "We're being led," Park Min whispered. "But to what?" The corridor opened into a massive chamber that defied their understanding of spatial dynamics. It seemed much larger on the inside than the external measurements of the ship would suggest. Complex machinery hummed with potential energy, systems that looked ready to activate at a moment's notice. In the center of the chamber stood something that looked like a control interface. But it wasn't a typical computer or navigation system. It was more like a living neural network, with tendrils of light connecting various points in a complex, ever-changing pattern. "This isn't just technology," Dr. Lee said slowly. "This is something else entirely." As if responding to his words, the neural interface began to pulse with increasing intensity. The team watched, transfixed, as information started to flow, not in data streams, but in complex visual and emotional impressions that hinted at a story far larger than their current understanding. They had made first contact, but with what exactly remained a mystery. The boarding team moved deeper into the vessel's interior, each step carefully calculated. Technical specialist Park Ji-soo led the way, her scanning equipment constantly monitoring their environment. The corridors seemed to shift and change subtly, as if the ship itself was a living organism responding to their presence. Strange symbols occasionally flickered on the walls, complex mathematical equations and geometric patterns that seemed to dance just at the edge of comprehension. These weren't mere decorations, but something more profound. Each symbol pulsed with an energy that suggested deep meaning. "The internal architecture is impossible," whispered Kim Day, the team's structural engineer. His specialized sensors were going crazy, recording data that defied conventional physics. Walls that should be solid appeared to have multiple dimensional layers, spaces that seemed to bend and fold in ways that challenged basic understanding of space. Suddenly, a section of the floor became transparent. Beneath their feet, complex machinery hummed with an intricate dance of energy and movement. Cooling systems, power conduits, and repair mechanisms worked in perfect synchronization, a symphony of technological brilliance that left the team speechless. Dr. Lee Hyun noticed something peculiar. The ship seemed to be responding to their emotional states. When someone felt nervous, the corridor would subtly widen. When curiosity peaked, hidden interfaces would momentarily reveal themselves. It was as if the vessel was alive, communicating in a language beyond words. A massive chamber opened before them, filled with what appeared to be maintenance robots. But these weren't typical machines. They looked more like living organisms, with fluid movements and adaptive structures that could transform instantaneously. Some were repairing microscopic damage while others seemed to be running complex diagnostic routines. "These aren't just machines," Park Jisoo said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're more like biological computers." The robots paused, momentarily turning towards the team. Not in a threatening way, but with a sense of curiosity. For a brief moment, communication seemed possible. Not through language, but through some deeper, more intuitive connection. Holographic interfaces began to emerge around them. Complex star charts, technological schematics, and what appeared to be battle strategies flickered in and out of existence. The information was so advanced that most of it was incomprehensible, like trying to explain quantum physics to an ant. Kim Day's equipment detected something extraordinary. The ship's internal systems were continuously adapting, learning from their presence. Every movement, every scan, every breath was being analyzed and integrated into the vessel's understanding. A section of the wall dissolved, revealing what seemed to be a massive weapon system. But it wasn't a typical arsenal. These were precision instruments that could potentially neutralize entire fleets without firing a single traditional projectile. Energy manipulation, quantum disruption, molecular reconfiguration. Technologies so advanced they bordered on magic. Dr. Lee touched one of the interfaces experimentally. Instantly, a flood of information rushed through his mind. Brief glimpses of planetary conflicts, strategic maneuvers, and technological developments that suggested humans had capabilities far beyond what anyone had imagined. "This ship," he whispered. "It's not just a weapon. It's a complete historical and technological archive." The team moved cautiously, understanding they were walking through something more than a spacecraft. This was a living testament to human engineering, a vessel that was part machine, part intelligence, part historical record. Unexpected sounds began to emerge. Not mechanical noises, but something resembling a heartbeat. Soft, rhythmic pulses that suggested the ship was more alive than anyone could have predicted. The walls seemed to breathe, the floors to pulse with an underlying energy. Park Jisoo's scanning equipment suddenly went silent. Not broken, but overwhelmed. The technological complexity was beyond their current understanding. They were like prehistoric humans discovering a smartphone, able to see it, but unable to truly comprehend its full potential. As they continued their exploration, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just a discovery. This was a revelation that would change everything they thought they knew about technology, warfare, and the potential of intelligent design. The team reached the vessel's core chamber after hours of careful navigation. Dr. Lee Hyun felt a strange tension in the air, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. The massive central chamber pulsed with an energy that defied natural laws. A gigantic fusion reactor dominated the space, unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Its structure seemed to breathe, molecular components shifting and rearranging in complex patterns. Streams of exotic matter flowed like liquid light, creating intricate pathways that suggested intelligence beyond mechanical design. "This isn't just a power source," whispered Park Jisoo. "This is something else entirely." The reactor's core revealed layers of technological complexity that challenged everything they understood about energy production. Quantum entanglement principles were integrated so seamlessly that the boundary between technology and living system became blurred. Each microscopic component seemed to communicate, adapting and responding in milliseconds. Suddenly, holographic displays erupted around them. Complex battle simulations played out in rapid succession. Planetary invasions, fleet engagements, strategic maneuvers that suggested humans possessed computational thinking far beyond their current understanding. The scenarios were so advanced that most appeared more like abstract art than military planning. Kim Dae's scanning equipment began to overheat, unable to process the massive amount of information flooding its systems. The reactor was generating energy signatures that didn't just produce power, they seemed to manipulate fundamental physical laws. "Look at this," Dr. Lee pointed to a specific neural interface. Intricate networks of light connected various systems, creating a living computational matrix that could predict and counter potential threats milliseconds before they occurred. It wasn't just a defensive system, it was a predictive intelligence network. The team realized they were standing in something more than a spacecraft's core. This was a technological marvel that blurred the lines between machine, intelligence, and something entirely unknown. Weapon systems integrated into the core revealed capabilities that could neutralize entire fleet formations with a single coordinated strike. Quantum disruption technologies, molecular reconfiguration weapons, energy manipulation systems that could potentially disable entire planetary defense networks, all contained within this single vessel. Park Jisoo noticed something peculiar. The reactor's exotic matter seemed to respond to emotional states. When team members felt excitement, the energy streams would pulse more intensely. When fear crept in, the system would subtly adjust, creating protective energy barriers. "It's alive," Kim Dae whispered. "Not in a biological sense, but something more." The neural interfaces began showing fragmented historical records, brief glimpses of human technological development, strategic planning, and computational advancements that suggested a civilization capable of thinking centuries ahead. Each image was like a puzzle piece, hinting at a much larger narrative. Unexpected sounds emerged, not mechanical noises but something resembling a heartbeat, soft rhythmic pulses that suggested the core was more than a power source. It was a living, thinking system that could adapt, learn, and potentially make independent decisions. Dr. Lee touched one of the interfaces experimentally. A flood of information rushed through his consciousness. Strategic insights, technological principles, and computational models that were generations ahead of their current understanding. The reactor's energy signature suggested capabilities beyond traditional power generation. It could potentially manipulate space-time fabric, create localized quantum fields, and generate energy from dimensions they couldn't even comprehend. "This isn't just advanced technology," Park Jisoo said, her voice filled with a mixture of wonder and fear. "This is something that challenges our entire understanding of what's possible." The core continued to pulse, watching, learning, waiting. Each moment revealed another layer of complexity, another hint of the incredible technological marvel they had discovered. As the team stood in the chamber, one thing became absolutely clear. They were witnessing something far beyond a simple spacecraft. This was a testament to human potential, a glimpse into a level of technological evolution that seemed almost magical in its complexity. The Alien Confederation's central command chamber fell silent as the reconnaissance team's report played across massive holographic displays. Commander Park Sung stood motionless, his eyes reflecting the complex data streams revealing the hidden human Dreadnought's capabilities. "This changes everything," muttered Admiral Kim Jae, his weathered hands gripping the conference table. The implications of the discovery were profound and terrifying. One abandoned vessel had just rewritten everything they understood about technological warfare. Intelligence analysts worked frantically, processing the captured data. The human Dreadnought represented more than a technological marvel. It was a strategic statement. Its very existence suggested that humans possessed capabilities far beyond current understanding. A civilization that could create and then deliberately hide such a technological marvel was not just advanced, it was potentially unpredictable. Satellite communication networks buzzed with encrypted transmissions. Every military strategist, political leader, and research specialist was analyzing the same fundamental question: what other secrets might humanity be keeping? The vessel's quantum stealth technologies were particularly disturbing. If one Dreadnought could remain undetected for such a long period, how many more might be hidden throughout the galaxy? The psychological impact was as significant as the technological revelation. Tactical simulations began running across multiple research platforms. Each scenario revealed the same conclusion. Traditional defensive strategies would be completely ineffective against the technologies demonstrated by the human vessel. Adaptive hull systems, predictive combat interfaces, and energy manipulation capabilities rendered existing military doctrines obsolete. "We are no longer the most advanced civilization," whispered Dr. Lee Hyun, the Confederation's chief research scientist. Her voice carried a mixture of professional excitement and deep concern. The human Dreadnought represented a quantum leap in technological evolution. Military advisors began recommending immediate strategic recalibrations. Defense budgets would need complete restructuring. Entire weapon development programs would be abandoned in favor of studying the captured technological insights. The most disturbing revelation was the vessel's neural-linked combat systems. These weren't just sophisticated computers. They represented a form of technological intelligence that could predict and counter potential threats with millisecond precision. It suggested humans had developed a way to merge computational thinking with strategic planning in ways never before imagined. Diplomatic channels started buzzing with nervous energy. How would they approach a civilization capable of creating such technological marvels? Traditional negotiation strategies seemed suddenly primitive and ineffective. Economic impact assessments began streaming in. Technology markets would be completely disrupted. Research institutions would redirect decades of work to understand even a fraction of the capabilities demonstrated by the single abandoned vessel. "We are looking at a paradigm shift," announced Commander Park Sung to his assembled leadership team. "Our understanding of technological progression has been fundamentally challenged." The psychological impact was perhaps most significant. The alien confederation had always viewed themselves as technologically superior. This single discovery demolished that perception completely. Humans were not just another developing civilization. They were potentially several technological generations ahead. Strategic planning meetings continued deep into the night. Each analysis revealed more questions than answers. The human Dreadnought was more than a technological artifact. It was a message. A clear, deliberate communication about human capabilities and strategic thinking. Research teams began investigating every available human historical record. How long had they been developing these technologies? What other advanced systems might they have hidden throughout the galaxy? The questions became increasingly complex. Military advisors recommended a complete defensive restructuring. Existing weapon systems would need total reimagination. Shield technologies, combat strategies, and technological development paths would require fundamental reconsideration. As the alien confederation absorbed the shock of discovery, one fundamental truth became crystal clear. Humanity was not just another species to be categorized or understood. They were a civilization with potential so vast, so complex, that traditional assessment models became meaningless. The hidden Dreadnought was more than a technological marvel. It was a warning, a subtle, sophisticated message about human potential that would reshape galactic understanding for generations to come.